Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark, aka Derringer. Today is Sunday, July 28th, and you are listening to episode 219 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. So hopefully I don't sound too tired this evening. I literally just got off a plane maybe an hour ago and made my way home. We had a long weekend in Washington, D.C. If you guys saw my tweet, I was down there for a wedding on my wife's side. It was a really good time. Saw a lot of family I hadn't seen in quite a long time. Not my family, her family, of course. But, you know, weddings are always a joyous occasion, and this certainly was as well. I also did a little sightseeing in D.C. I saw more Make America Great Again hats than I ever want to see again in my life. No offense to anybody if they support Trump, but there were quite a few of them. A lot of tourists. I'd forgotten how touristy Washington, D.C. is. It's been a long time since I've been there. I went there a lot when I was younger. I've done every museum multiple times, but a lot of tourists, and I'm surprised with how many tourists there actually were. We stayed right next to the NASA headquarters, which was really cool. I got to go take a picture of NASA headquarters. That was, like I said, cool and awesome, but such a long weekend and such stress flying back, almost missing our flight. TSA lines were ridiculous today, and if you're overseas folks listening to the show and don't understand, you'll never understand. It's just insanity over here. So I'm exhausted, to put it kind of bluntly. But moving along, first thing I want to do regarding the show is just give a shout out to LW, who made a donation last week. He said it was to lift my spirits after the crappy week I had previously. So I do appreciate what you did, LW. And obviously, if anybody else wants to make a donation towards the show, again, hit that Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com, and you can find all the ways right there. But less talk about me and more talk about Planetside. What is actually in store for this week's show? Well, first I want to talk about the July 25th PC game update, which brought some new mentor stuff, a whole bunch of implant adjustments and other things, along with a whole bunch of miscellaneous fixes. Then after that, I want to talk about the lack of a PS4 game update, which is getting old at this point. Then I'm going to talk about the maximum pressure alert for a bit, and then finish this week talking about datamined information and what that might mean for the future of Planetside. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. So first up this week is that July 25th PC game update, which has been subtitled Midsummer Mentors. And the first thing brought into this is that mentor system expansion. So obviously the devs had said when they first brought mentor squads into the game late last year, they discussed a mentor rating system, but ultimately didn't commit to it until they knew how players would use the mentor squads in the first place. And they were also trying to craft a rating system of any kind, and they know that doing that is difficult in games that have a sandbox focus, and were worried of the risks to the negative and exploitative behaviors that are inherent with those types of systems. So obviously they wanted to design something light on gameplay rewards that was instead geared specifically toward players who already engage in the types of behaviors they want to see for a mentor system. So they also want everyone to know that this expansion is not a substitute for tutorials. which they still are trying to deliver later on this year, along with other new player experience enhancements. But they know that the community has always been a large reason why new players choose to either stay or leave the game, and wanted to take advantage of this. So this new mentor rating system is going to recognize veteran community members that have made it their goal to help new players. And a mentor rating is going to be earned each time a mentor ribbon is awarded. And mentor ribbons can now only be earned while leading a mentor squad when players beneath BR30 earn battle ranks. And as I said on last week's show, mentor rating decays over time, so you will need to continue to maintain that rating in order to get your little icon. So they've given 4 tiers of this, and these tiers are also shown when a player hosts a mentor squad in the squad finder. So if you have a mentor rating of 0 to 499, you're at the copper tier. If you're at the silver tier, which is 500 to 699, you can now speak in mentor chat, which I'll talk about in a second. If you hit the gold tier, which is 700 to 899 points, you'll get a gold mentor tier icon that's going to show next to your name in chat channels, which is pretty cool. And then there's the Araxium tier, and that's if you have a 900 to 1,000 mentor rating. You'll have the Araxium mentor tier icon shown next to your name in chat channels as well. That's a cool little reward. Will I ever get there? No, because I don't host mentor squads for the most part. I do all my teaching here on the Instant Action podcast. But for folks who are interested in something like this, that's a decent little reward in game, and I especially like the touch of adding an icon next to their name in chat channels. Maybe they can add a little Instant Action podcast icon next to my name in chat channels. I'd appreciate that. So then my yell chat really stands out to other players. So I did mention that new player chat channel. So all players under BR30 have access to this new channel where they're supposed to be able to ask questions and receive answers from dedicated veterans. And you know they're dedicated because they are either a silver, gold, or Araxium tier of the mentor rating. Anybody, like I said, silver or greater, they get their name will be prefaced with the word mentor as well as their icon for gold and Araxium. To access this channel, you either type /new or /new player or /mentor. Obviously, you type your question after that, and hopefully you will get a good answer from some of the dedicated veterans in the game itself. Now, the caveat to all this is the devs want people who pursue mentor rating to do so for the right reasons, and the right reasons in their mind is helping new players. So they ask that everyone be respectful and helpful in the channels because they will not be tolerating any malicious behavior. And they specifically say this can have real implications on your account. So if you're going to grind mentor rating just so you can be an asshole in mentor chat, expect to be banned from the game because that is not what they are looking for this. Finally, they made some mentor squad changes itself. A common request was to return map marking capabilities. So they've re-enabled map smoke, offensive and defensive map markers for players running mentor squads. Now, what are they going to be doing moving forward? In the future, they're going to be flagging trustworthy community members to speak in the new player channel regardless of the mentor rating. Hey, maybe that might be me. Okay. Maybe not. I don't want to toot my own horn. They've also started working on an outline highlight system that they'll be able to use to highlight mentor squad mates through walls and potentially apply this tech elsewhere. I'll talk about that one a little bit more in a second, but it also said that it's likely they'll need to tune the mentor rating system once they see it out in the wild, so it shouldn't be a surprise if more changes come later on down the line. But going back to that outline highlight system, this is something that you've ever watched. CSGO is a great example. If you've ever watched people streaming matches of CSGO, they have the ability to see enemies on their screen or players on their screen. Like I'm describing it poorly. I'm talking about CSGO competitive matches where you have someone casting the competitive match, and while they're casting that competitive match, they have a special view of the players that allows them to, the player playing can't do it, but the casters are able to see people outlined through the wall, enemies, so that they can kind of make speculations on what players are going to do regarding this. And back when I was doing Community Clash and at SW Live, this was something that I said, in order for Planetside 2 to be a competitive game and get people to stream it, actual matches and things like that, that we needed something like CSGO has, seeing squad mates through walls or seeing enemies through walls. So if they're really working on this tech, then this could be a real big thing for competitive Planetside 2 gameplay, especially for people to watch competitive Planetside 2 gameplay. I know there's not a lot of interest in it right now, but apply some tech like this to the game and that might actually change. So even though everything that I just talked about was completely about mentor squads, that is a very interesting little nugget that we should take from this and keep our fingers crossed that something like that actually does make it into the game itself. But enough about mentor squads. Let's move, and the mentor system. Let's move on to the other changes in this patch. The majority of them were infantry related, starting with the ambusher jump jets. They are now going to be ticking up energy over time instead of instantly recharging. And any implants and other equipment that affect energy restoration and consumption for ambusher jump jets now also impact them in a similar manner to other abilities. Some of those things include the flight suit. The cooldown reduction for ambusher jump jets was removed, and it now increases the regeneration rate of ambusher jump jet fuel by 10, 15, 17.5, and 20%. The paratrooper implant now affects ambusher jump jets at all ranks. Energy regen is now 3, 4, 5.5, and 8% restoration. And the rank 5 benefit was changed to reduce fall damage for 6 seconds instead of increasing bottom armor. The aerial combatant implant, the rank 5 no longer benefits. The rank 5 benefit no longer instantly recharges ambusher jump jets. Aerial combatant now restores the same maximum fuel to ambusher jump jets as it does to any other jump jet types at all ranks. Failsafe now works with ambusher jump jets at all rank. The assimilate implant rank 5 bonus will now restore ambusher jump jet energy as well. Moving off of the ambusher jump jet information, heavyweight got a bit of a little buff, or not a buff, but a change so that it now has a particle effect on activation. The survivalist implant no longer triggers when your health drops below 40% and instead now triggers when the player's shield is depleted. The assassin implant was completely restructured and the percentage chance to trigger was removed altogether. Now instead, kills beyond 150 meters, 125, 100, or 50 meters, depending on your rank, will remove spot checks on the player and conceal them from spot attempts for 1 second. At rank 5, headshot kills will also trigger the ability, and targets you damage with any weapon will be spotted. The gunslinger implant now activates when NSO characters kill other NSO characters. The mending field implant, the rank 5 benefit, should now work with NSO characters. Electrotech's rank 5 benefit now actually despawns enemy non-turret deployables instead of destroying them. The advanced shield capacitor got some changes so that now NSO combat medic and heavy assault have access to it. The advanced shield capacitor now reduces shield recharge delay by 1 second in addition to its pre-existing benefit. However, it does not stack with survivalist. And the dev notes on this is that they were hoping to bring ASC back into a more competitive place with certain loadouts with this change. Moving on to weapons, and there was just one. This is the NS44L Showdown. This is the rare alert reward that you can win by participating in 90% and winning an alert. Your ADS movement speed multiplier was increased to 0.5 times. And the dev notes on this is the minor change for feel while they were doing some cleaning of other elements related to the aim down sight's fire modes. Just sounds like it was missed. Some other high priority fixes that made their way in. They inputted a speculative fix for outfit applications crashing when being viewed. They have a speculative fix for missing daily login certification for members. And finally, the maximum pressure continent event should now trigger naturally. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on this week's show. There were also a whole bunch of other miscellaneous changes, fixes, and additions. They have a speculative fix out for valid spawn locations sometimes being hidden indefinitely, which I know is a pain in the butt. Some other ones that they fixed is players exiting drop pods should render more quickly. You should also be able to squad lock your vehicle again. They fixed some animation issues on max weapons. Also, swapping weapons shortly after reload, playing the reload animation when swapping. Any terminals and Spitfires that are hacked should now properly assign them to the hacking player's team because that was a little buggy in the past. Sky Shield should no longer trigger on players of the same faction. They fixed many. They added 4 manys. Interactions between NSO characters and other factions. And the changes to those, I've seen a few people asking different questions, and the response from the devs has always been that was one of the many interactions that has been fixed. They fixed the enabling and disabling bloom so that it now works in the UI as it's supposed to. The Thumper's Disruptor ammo will no longer duplicate its effect on multiple grouped targets. Ammo Belt now properly provides additional ammo for the Thumper. They added a Craft Implants button to the implant section on the loadout screen. They fixed NSO characters so they're no longer damaged by ally pain spires. They gave a default horn for the lightning to NSO characters. The aircraft synergy cert line now works correctly with NSO characters. The light assault rocket rifles firing modes work properly with special ammo for NSOs. Any kills with the flail and orbital strike for NSO characters should now properly count toward directives. And finally, NSO characters have access to map smoke, offensive and defensive indicators, just like they added for the Mentor Squad changes as well. So now it seems like Mentor Squad leaders get them and NSO characters get them. So there's your entire game update. I know it's a game update when really the only thing is the mentor system expansion. So I guess you can still call it an update, but it feels more like a hot fix than anything else. But that, again, was everything that dropped on the 25th. And let's move on to our second topic this week. And that second topic is about not getting a PlayStation 4 Planetside 2 game update. And I desperately want to blame Daybreak Games for this because all my loyal PlayStation 4 listeners out there, I completely understand how absolutely fed up with everything that you are, especially because we had a dev live stream the previous week, and Rel specifically came out and said that he loves the PS4 players, and Nick said over and over again, there's going to be a patch, there's going to be a game update, DirectX 11 is coming, yet I think everyone, including myself, expected it last week. And here I am recording on a Sunday, and we have not gotten a game update on the PS4 for Planetside 2. Again, I desperately want to point the finger at Daybreak Games, but my gut is saying that it's not Daybreak Games that's holding it back at this time. And I think we might need to be actually pointing our fingers at Sony instead. I've been reading a lot of people saying that Daybreak Games has already submitted the game update to Sony and they're waiting for it to come from Sony. I have not been able to get that confirmation from anybody at Daybreak Games. But if that's the case, that leads me more and more to believe that Daybreak Games are not the ones behind the delay in getting a game update out for the PS4. So, am I hoping that we're going to see it this week? Of course, I'm hoping that we're going to see it this week. And I'm just going to remind all my listeners when it does drop that you are going to need to re-download the game 100% when that happens. So make sure you're aware of that when the game update does actually come. I really, really hope for Daybreak Game's sake and all the devs out there that the PlayStation 4 update does drop in this coming week, because I think you're going to have a lot of PlayStation 4 people rioting if that does not happen. I'm sad that it didn't drop. I really expected it to drop on Thursday or Friday last week, and then when Thursday completed and it hadn't dropped, and then Friday I was in DC and I kept checking Reddit and not seeing anything, and checking Twitter and not seeing anything, and then they rolled right into the weekend, double XP on PC and PS4 for members, and that was it. I had a pit in my stomach regarding it. So, again, I really hope that we do see it in the next week. But there's nothing more that I can really say on that topic, so we'll move on to topic 3 this week. And that third topic is the maximum pressure alert. As I said in the beginning, one of the high priority fixes that came to the PC was that the maximum pressure continent event should now trigger naturally. And I believe I was playing Thursday night, and just before I had finished all my packing for vacation, I let you all know that I did do the important things first and made sure that I finished packing my suitcase with all my clothes, so I was ready to go the next morning before heading downstairs to play a little Planetside 2, because I knew I wouldn't be able to play in the double XP weekend. And lo and behold, a little while in, a maximum pressure alert kicked off. Now, I said originally when these dropped that this would be interesting. I also said that I felt too many maxes was maybe not a great idea, and making them free was not a great idea. But I'm going to do a complete 180 on this one, because I had a ton of fun playing the maximum pressure alert. Now, granted, I've only played one, and it could be that after my 7th, 8th, 10th, 20th one that I'm going to be sick of it as well. But I felt like it ended too quickly. I pulled my free max. I jumped around in a biolab, got on the top of one of the buildings, and started killing people as they exited a spawn room, got a whole bunch of kills, decided not to do that anymore, and then I pulled my archer. Now, I have not gotten many max kills with the archer in the past, but playing a maximum pressure alert, I got more archer kills than I've ever gotten before in my life with that thing. And it made me realize that this is a great way for people who have the archer to Araxium it, because when people are pulling maxes nonstop, you're going to get a lot of kills with it. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you do not own an archer, you should go out and get an archer, so that the next time the maximum pressure alerts kick off, you can have as much fun as I did on them. Now, granted, yeah, it's max cheese, and I did die a lot to maxes and stuff like that, but it almost feels like a farming simulator at times, with all the maxes come running through, and people are dropping C4 on them and getting a ton of kills. People are using the archer and getting a ton of kills. Max on max crime is occurring all over the map. I really wasn't sure what to think originally when the maximum pressure alert was announced. Other than that, it might be interesting. It's a lot more fun than I ever thought it was going to be. And again, I'm not one that's going to pull maxes in the maximum pressure alert, and I hope all you guys do, because I will be one of the first people to go grab my archer and get in some great position and start killing maxes left and right. So I'll issue my apology right now to Rel and everybody else who was pushing for this maximum pressure alert. I'm hooked. I can't wait to get into the game and play on the next one. But with that, let's move to our fourth and final topic this week. And the fourth topic this week comes thanks to an email that I received from Hybrid. And he wrote to me and he said, Derringer, I'm not sure if you saw this post from about a week ago, but apparently the old school resources were data mined again on a recent PTS client. Maybe it will tie into the Sanctuary vendors somehow. And so to that, I say I had not seen the post. So first of all, thank you, Hybrid, for pointing that out to me because I had completely missed it. But there was actually an email, not an email, I'm sorry. There was a Reddit post from RetVX, and he basically just wrote, these strings were just re-added to the PTS client. This was 12 days ago. Mechanized resources, the infantry resources, and aerospace resources were all added to the PTS. Now, for those that do not know, way back in the early days of Planetside 2, and we're talking way early, bases would give you either, there were no nanites. Instead, we had these resources, and different bases in the game and points on the map would either give you mechanized infantry or aerospace resources, and your character was constantly ticking up all three of these. And obviously, mechanized resources allowed you to pull tanks. Infantry resources were infantry related, and obviously aerospace resources were air related. So you had to actually have a whole bunch of these bases on the map captured, and depending on which ones you had and which ones were giving what resources, it was usually +3, +4, etc. of each resource. Every time you'd get a tick of nanites like you do now, instead you'd get a tick of however many mechanized infantry or aerospace resources you would get based on what bases that your faction controlled. And there were a lot of ways to, kind of game the system because certain times an entire faction would own the majority of one of the maps and they'd get every resource from it, and it would basically make give whoever was willing the ability to buy an unstoppable number of force multipliers. So I'm hoping if we get a resource system back, which I didn't mind the old resource system. Changing to just plain nanites is fine, but I didn't mind the old resource system because you could actually, there were actually some more consequences to what territory you held within the game itself, and it would give people reasons to push down one lane or another within the map so that they could increase the amount of resources that everyone was receiving in the game. But again, it had a way of escalating so that one side had everything that they needed and could just pull things nonstop. And that's why we switched just to straight up nanites to make everything easier on the wallet, I guess. You'd get the same, everyone would receive the same amount of nanites each tick, and that's that. But again, I didn't mind the old system for the most part because it did give us a reason to fight in certain places on the map. So I'm really curious to see if we're going to get something like this back into the game itself. Hopefully the devs are really thinking about something like this. Honestly, though, I really think that this may just be some old data that made its way back in and doesn't necessarily mean that they're working on something like this within the game. So I'm not going to hold my breath hoping for something like this. I really think that most likely this is just some old information that accidentally got put into the PTS. And it'll be curious to see if the next PTS client eliminates this stuff or not. Regardless, I'm glad that Hybrid sent me that email because it did give me something interesting to talk about and kind of reminisce back to the original days of Planetside 2. But again, I'll kind of believe it when I see something like this coming. All right, let's move on to housekeeping this week.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
So no other emails. Like I said, I did get that email from Hybrid. I probably should have just read it in the email section of the show, but it was good enough to be its own topic, so that's why I didn't. So unfortunately, I have nothing else, no other housekeeping to do this week, so that is going to be it for this week's show. So how can you get in touch with me or the show? Obviously, your first step is to visit my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. Again, that's where you can find the support the show tab. If you want to make a donation like LW did last week, I would greatly appreciate it, because again, those donations are what keep the show going. You can also email me at instantactionshow@gmail.com, just like Hybrid did. I read pretty much everything that you guys send me. Also, you can give me a call at 347-4VM4PS2. Those digits are 347-486-4772. And finally, please follow the show on Twitter at InstActPodcast. That's INSTACT Podcast. But in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. But finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that join combat, formerly known as Instant Action button. Derringer out.
Get your arms combined.